What if the greatest proof of front office failure isn't a bad trade or a blown Game 7, but the day your own GM walks into the room, points at the one soldier who's bled for your crest since 2012, and says, you're the problem. Take the fall so we can pretend this was your fault? That's the moral and competitive cliff the Toronto Maple Leafs are now tiptoeing along with Morgan Rielly. So before we tear into this, I'm putting the GM's pen in your hand. You're in Brad Treliving's chair. Do you sit Morgan Rielly down, look him in the eye, admit the season is cooked, and beg him to waive his no-move clause while you agree to eat his salary for years just to get the contract off your books? Or do you draw a line and say, no, trading our main leader in panic is proof we've lost control of this franchise? Think fast, because patience in Toronto isn't just low, it's gone. Let's walk into the crime scene. Morgan Rielly has never been just another defenseman here. He's the longest-serving heartbeat of this era, drafted in 2012, surviving the tank years, the Babcock years, the Shauna plan, all the Game 7 funerals. When stars duck questions, Rielly steps up to the mics. When this team gets accused of being soft, he's usually the one finishing checks, taking hits to make plays. Spiritually, he's worn the C in everything but stitching. But 2026 has exposed him in the harshest way possible. You can't hide from a -17 rating. You can't explain away being on the ice for roughly 4 goals against per 60 minutes. The Rielly of 2019-2021, driving play, eating tough minutes, masking structural flaws, hasn't shown up this year. What's left on paper is a $7.5 million, a year contract that drags on until 2030, tied to a player whose impact has cratered at the exact moment the team around him is imploding. And that combination, declining performance plus heavy term, is the perfect storm that front offices love to blame when they don't want to look at themselves. Enter David Pagnotta's bomb. Management plans to have a conversation with Rielly this summer. Not a soft chat, not a minor tweak. The talk, the one where they tell him, we need something bold. Will you accept a trade? And here comes the power dynamic that makes the situation so raw. He doesn't have to. Rielly negotiated a no-move clause for a reason. He can listen to every word, then calmly say, no, I signed here. I committed. Figure out without shipping me out. He has that right. He earned it over a decade of service. But if he does say yes, the humiliation for the organization is just getting started. Because no contender out there is sitting on clean cap space for a $7.5 million defenseman signed through 2030, especially one coming off a negative season. The only way a Rielly deal works is if Toronto straps on a financial hand grenade, retaining salary, maybe for the rest of his contract, and are taking back someone else's garbage money just to grease the skids. We're already seeing it in the rumor mill. Teams like the San Jose Sharks, miles from contention, are circling like vultures. The chatter is simple and brutal. You want us to take Rielly? Great. You pay us in picks. And while you're at it, here's Logan Couture's deal. Enjoy the dead money. Vancouver will sniff. San Jose will circle. Other rebuilding clubs will lurk. None of them are doing Toronto a favor. They're trying to turn Rielly into a multi-year cap dump rental. Not just a player, but for Toronto's future assets. That's what real failure looks like. Paying par Morgan Rielly's salary and stapling draft picks to him so he can go play meaningful hockey, maybe win a cup, somewhere else while you sit at home with empty shelves and flexibility. That's signing your sporting bankruptcy papers in public. And it didn't fall from the sky. There's a straight line from this mess back to Brad Treliving's decisions. Treliving came in promising to fix the team by breaking its core. Mitch Marner was framed, directly or indirectly, as part of the curse. The message was clear. Offense-heavy core 4 hockey was the issue. Ship Marner out, get harder to play against, retool the blue line, and the playoff curse breaks. Instead, the attack dulled. The defensive identity never stabilized. The system turned into a Frankenstein, slower, less dynamic up front, still porous and confused in its own zone. And now, with the season on life support and the playoffs slipping away for the first time in a decade, the same front office that created this hybrid monster is looking at the longest-serving Leaf and saying, we need you to bail us out of cap problem we built. That's where the swift justice of hockey stomps through the door. The league isn't punishing Toronto just because Rielly had a bad year. It's punishing the organization for a years-long pattern. Soft defensive structure, star-heavy cap allocation, and then a rushed identity flip that never fully made sense. Now the bills do. So you end up at a question that slices straight through fan loyalty and cap logic. Is trading Morgan Rielly in 2026 smart asset management, or is it scapegoating? On the cold-blooded side of the argument, the math is unflinching. Rielly's results have fallen off. His contract is big and long. The cap is suffocating your ability to bring in new blood. This blue line needs fresh legs, new profiles, and more prime-age talent. From that angle, one of your only escape hatches is to move a huge contract, and Rielly stands out. If you believe this window is over and a full restructuring has to happen, then logically, you entertain every big number on the books, including 44. On the human and cultural side, though, throwing him overboard right now is as damning of management as anything they've done on the ice. Because this collapse is not just on Morgan Rielly. It's on roster construction that left the defense thin behind him. It's on systems that failed. It's on coaching changes that didn't stabilize. It's on years of playoff scar tissue never being addressed properly. It's on a decision to move Marner and then half commit to a new style without actually finishing the job. Rielly became the face of this era by staying through everything. He stuck when stars could have left. He put his name on a long-term deal that screamed, "I want to win here." If the response now is, "Thanks for a decade, here's San Jose and half your salary paid by us, so we can start over," that's not accountability. That's deflection. There's also the question of what you're actually getting back. Any Rielly trade with retention or bad money coming back is unlikely to fetch you an A+ return. You're not flipping him for multiple blue chippers and a clean sheet. You're negotiating from weakness. A team desperate for cap relief try to move a struggling veteran with term. The offers you'll see are going to look a lot like, we'll take him, but you're going to give us a first, and maybe you're going to eat $2 or $3 million a year until 2030. So you'd be losing your longest-serving leader, stuck paying millions annually for him to play somewhere else, bleeding draft capital just to make it possible, and still needing to replace his minutes on the ice with someone better, younger, and cheaper, which is much easier said than done. That's why this isn't just a hockey trade debate. It's an identity crisis. If you ship Rielly out under these conditions, you're not just correcting a contract. You're admitting that the people in charge over the last several years, and especially the last two, misread the situation so badly that their solution now is to amputate the one guy who was here long before them and will still be remembered long after they're gone. On the flip side, if you keep him, you're accepting some harsh realities too. You're tying up $7.5 million until 2030 in a defenseman who, at least this season, has looked more like a number 3 than a true number 1. You're limiting how aggressively you can rebuild other parts of the roster. You're betting that this down year is at least partly systemic and partly fixable with better partners, better structure, a more sane distribution of minutes. You're saying, we'll wear this contract because what he brings in leadership and what he might bounce back to is still worth more to us than the half-baked trade packages we're being offered. That's the fork in the road. So, you, sitting in the GM's chair, do you cut the cord, go full ruthless, tell Morgan Rielly it's time, ask him to waive, agree to retain salary, and start a true teardown, even if it means watching him resurrect his game in Vancouver or San Jose, while you explain to fans why you attach picks to a decade-long warrior? Or do you plant your feet and say, we've made enough mistakes scapegoating the wrong people. We'll fix the blue line around him. We'll find new blood somewhere else. But we are not pinning this collapse on number 44-inch. That's the real decision. Drop your verdict in the comments. Should the Leafs finally sever emotional ties and push Rielly out as the first pillar of a total rebuild? Or would that be the ultimate crime? Dumping the failures of management onto the shoulders of the one guy who's worn this jersey through every storm? And stay locked in, because while Toronto wrestles with the idea of selling off its homegrown icon, a sleeping giant in the Atlantic has stepped out of shadows. A rival is lining up a move to steal an elite forward out of this market in the coming hours. A move that could reshape the balance of power in the division. The identity of that monster landing in our backyard? That's what I'm breaking down at the start of the next video.